Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another piano lesson. I'm Jordan. That's Lisa Witt right there. We have a lesson called Core Skills Craziness. Yeah, and you brought the whiteboard with the sticky magnets.
I know.
We got some sheet music stuff to look at.
Yes.
We got all sorts of things here. So I'm just going to pass it right to you.
Okay.
And you take it away. Yeah. Oh, before we start, I'm just going to say also for Pianote members, if you guys have questions, submit them with the Ask a Question button under your screen, and we will answer on stream here. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
All right, so last time I was here, we looked at the very first piano lesson, and we talked about some very basic skills on the keyboard and on the staff. So I'm just going to do a quick review of that in case you are a beginner or in case you haven't seen that one. This will kind of bring you up to speed. So if you're kind of coming in fresh, you won't be totally lost. Yeah. So basically the keyboard is, we looked at how it's set up, the musical alphabet. Every key has a name assigned to it. So we run our musical alphabet from A to G, and then it repeats itself again, A to G. There is no H.
What?
I know.
Still
no H.
They're working on it.
They're working on the H.
Yeah.
So we go from A to G. If you look at your keyboard, you'll notice that we have it grouped, that we've got black keys that show up in groups of 3 and 2 and 3 and 2, and it goes on and on like that. And these little groupings kind of serve as landmarks for us so that we know what note is what. One of the most common struggles that I find new piano players have is getting comfortable with the geography of the keyboard. So learning what note is what and how to get there quickly.
Yeah.
So for me, my little tricks are I pick 2 landmarks that are really easy to find that kind of help me get where I need to go. So the first one is C. Most new songs and scales are going to be based on C. So if you find a group of 2, peace sign, you'll notice your thumb kind of lands on C. So that's how I do it. I find my group of 2, and there's C. The other landmark note I like to find is F. So here's a group of 3, and my thumb, if I slide it down here, we're on F. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that you just kind of take a moment to get comfortable with where your piano is, how the keyboard is set up, and find yourself a C nearest to the middle. So some of you might be on keyboards, and some of you might be on really big pianos, and some of them on small. So find a C that feels near the middle, and we'll call it middle C, and we're going to take a look at the C scale. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our hand so that every single finger lines up with a note. Now this positioning is really natural for me, but if you're new, this might feel a little bit crazy. So it's okay if you have to sit here and kind of go, okay, fingers. Everybody gets into their own spot. Yeah. That's a skill that takes time to develop. Yeah. Totally normal. So I don't know, millions of times I've had to set my hands on the piano and get sort of the muscle memory. That's why I'm so good at it. So we're going to start on C, and we're going to work our way up the scale. We're going to end at the C above it, and we're going to head back down. So we're going to play C with our 1, D with our 2, E with our 3, and we're going to tuck our thumb under and hit F. Then we're going to reset our hand, G, A, B, C, and then we're going to head back down exactly the way that we came up. When we run out of fingers, we're going to use that 3rd finger, we're going to pivot, kind of untuck everybody, and then we're going to head back to C. So that is the C scale. Nice. I'm going to do it again. I've played C scales so many times, and it's never enough. It's a wonderful way to warm up your fingers, build dexterity. You can say the names of the notes as you play. That's a really good way to build familiarity with the keyboard. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Now when I'm playing my left hand on a C scale, I'm going to start with my 5 finger. So it's kind of the reverse of what my right hand did. And my 5 finger is going to go to the C below the C that my right hand was on. And that's important because later on we're going to look at playing scales hands together, and you're going to need a little bit of space. So 5 finger hits C, fingers line up in their little spots. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fly over with the 3rd finger. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. Tuck under. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, a really good way to practice that is hands separately to begin with, and then work at putting your hands together. Cool. So one of my little tests when I'm teaching at my studio is to practice hands separately, hands together, and then when you can play it with your eyes closed, you got the scale. Nice. So that's my little test. Can you play with your eyes closed? If you can do this with your eyes closed, you got it. Yeah. Yep, so that's C scale. Cool. Okay, so we've kind of looked at the keyboard, how the keyboard works. Another really good warm-up exercise to do is working on kind of getting some dexterity between the fingers and playing 3-note blocks called chords. And we talked about this in our last live lesson as well, where we played our 1 and our 3 and our 5. I start on C. And we practiced just kind of clawing our way up the keyboard like this. Fancy. And you can work at building up some speed. It looks really simple, but again, if you're a beginner, to develop the muscle memory to have your 1 and your 3 and your 5 push these keys down without your 2 and your 4 getting in the way can take some time. So again, be kind to yourself, take as much time as you need to get this skill sorted out. Yeah. Left hand can do it too. And for me, the left hand feels really weird playing this because my left hand does not play a lot of block chords. So it's a good exercise. Yeah. So that's kind of the quick review of what we did last time. Yeah. Today what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at some sight reading skills because I think one of the most challenging things when you're learning to play the piano is learning how to connect what we see on the staff, especially if you're learning to play by sight, with what is happening on the piano. It's really, really hard to read music. It's like learning Latin. I still struggle with reading music. It's not my strong suit. I'm much more comfortable playing by ear, but that is still really important for me to develop this skill because, you know, sometimes somebody hands me some sheet music and says, oh, can you play this? So it's good to be able to do that. Yeah. So all that to say, here we have our staff. We've got our treble clef and our bass clef. And then in the middle, we've got this line sort of created. Now, if you're using sheet music at home, you're not going to have this line between the staff. This is kind of just here for purposes to make it easy. And this is where we'd find middle C. So earlier when we were playing our scale, we were starting on middle C. So this is where we would see middle C. Boom. Okay, so this is C. And if we use our musical alphabet, we know that the next one's D. And then the line that we see first here, so we're going to go line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line. We're going to have D next. So one of the big tricky things I find is learning to see this space difference from a line to a space, because this is the distance between notes, and it's really, really important. So if I put my little magnet guys on like this for you, I'm going to do 5 of them. We've got a line, a space, a line, a space, and a line. Now we know this is C, so therefore this must be D. This is E, this is F, and this is G. Now a really good trick for quickly identifying G is noticing the treble clef's curl. It wraps around the second line, which happens to be the G line. And another name for treble clef is actually the G clef. So that's kind of cool. It's a little quick trick to find G. So there's our G note. So what I've created here is a series of notes that are moving up in steps. So if I were to play that on the piano, it would sound like this. C, D, E, F, G. Pretty straightforward. So in my mind, I call that step being up so high. It's a pattern that we see a lot in scales. You'll see it in music. Oftentimes when you have a bunch of notes like this kind of close together, you're going to hear them played quite quickly. So it's really good to develop the awareness in your ear to know that this sounds like this. So another way to be able to quickly identify notes on the staff is by using these silly little rhymes that we were all taught when we had our first piano lessons. Now, I usually avoid teaching these rhymes to my students right away because I really want them to work at memorizing the positioning rather than using the rhymes. But I think that it's good to know them, especially if you're learning from home, because you're gonna need to know that you're doing it correctly. So to have kind of a guide. So if you spell the word face in the spaces of the treble clef, so this would be F, this would be A, this would be C, and then this is E. So we have more than one C on this grand staff. So this would be the C in the middle, and then this is high C, so it's played here. So that's another really good thing to wrap your minds around, because when you see sheet music, you're going to go, okay, I know that's C, but where do I play it? Middle C, and then high C. Okay, so we've got our word face, F-A-C-E, and that helps us to really quickly identify where the notes are on the staff. So you're going to use logic and common sense for figuring out the lines. So I just kind of landmark these 4, and I go, okay, well, if I need to figure out what this note is, I'm going to go F, A, after A we have B. Right. So straightforward?
Yeah.
Making sense?
Yeah.
It's not the most exciting business in the world, but it's the fundamentals, it's the core skills that we need to have to be able to play the music that we want to be able to play. So if we look at the bass clef, we've got a different kind of rhyme scheme. So we're going to go, all cows eat grass. And that's what we can kind of think of for the space, for the spaces here. And then common sense will tell us that, let's do this one. If this is all, for all cows eat grass, this must be B.
Right. So you have these kind of landmark
yes.
notes, and then you can, because you know the alphabet, you can
yes.
just fill in the blanks, kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
And with piano, I find, especially with note reading, you end up having to know your alphabet frontwards and backwards. Mm-hmm. So we're not really used to saying our alphabet backwards, but you're right. going to find that's a really helpful skill when you're learning to play the piano. So you might want to start doing that. I mean, the good news is you don't have to go to Z.
Yeah.
Yay. So A through G and then backwards. Yeah. G, F, E, D, Z, right? Okay, so there you have it. That is the basic introduction to the staff and where the notes are and how that correlates to the hands. So we have the treble clef here, which is mostly right hand. Most of the time you see a treble clef, you're using your right hand. We have the bass clef here, which is usually our left hand. And then we have middle C. Now, a really important thing to note, because this throws some people off, is that middle C can belong to treble clef or bass clef. What? So on sheet music, this line kind of shifts, but if you see a line sort of put just above the last line of the bass staff with a note on it, that's going to be middle C, and it's going to mean play it with your left hand. If you see it kind of up here, usually your line is a little higher, it's going to mean to play it with your right hand. So be mindful of that. Yeah. But middle C is always the first line added after the last line that's already on the staff. So it kind of exists floating in its own little universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So middle C's, it's like our
sitting
home
on
base.
The fence.
It's the fence note.
Yeah.
Doesn't really belong
anywhere. It's still
anywhere.
figuring out life.
I know, poor middle C.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's our staff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at intervals, because if we can learn to identify intervals quickly on the piano and on the staff, we are going to have a much easier time playing music, especially sheet music. So what I find is that when we're sight reading, we're going to use, our note reading logic skills. We're going to use our rhymes, and we're going to memorize what the lines and spaces are as best we can. And then we're going to do some guesswork, because if you know that this is C, should not fall off the bench. This is C right here, and you see a note here, you want to be able to quickly deduce that we've skipped a note here, we've got nothing happening, so this must be E. See, skipped E, go to E. So I'm going to show you what this looks like on the piano first, and then we'll pull it all together, and you'll feel so brilliant afterwards. Okay, so starting on C, because again, we're doing this kind of from a basic place, and C is the easiest. Mm-hmm. Love C. Okay, so if we go from C to the next note, D, that is called a second. 1, 2. You can play them separate or together. Sounds gross together. I don't really like it, but that's called a second. And we can go from C to E, and we call that a third. That one reminds me of a doorbell.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can go 1, 2, 3, 4 from C to F. That's a fourth. Here comes the bride. Okay, and then we can go from C to G. That's a fifth. And we can keep going. C to A we call a sixth. C to B is a seventh. And then we can go C to C, and we call that an octave, an eighth. So those are the intervals. Again, if we play them solid, that's how it sounds.
Cool.
And that's a really good exercise as well for your fingers if you need something for your warm-up routine. Playing the space between all the intervals, just like this. Look at, I'm having excellent posture, and I'm gonna move up with a little bit of a rotation in my wrist, especially as I go to the 6th, 7th, and octave. And I can come back down like this. It sounds pretty.
Yeah.
And it helps you to learn your intervals. So same thing with the left hand. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. Okay, that's a crash course in intervals.
Cool.
Tracking with me so far?
I'm tracking.
Everybody's good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a really fun piece of sheet music that we're gonna look at in a moment that's gonna pull all these concepts together. But I really wanna show you what it looks like first, because when you're learning to play music, you should always it's good to look at the core concepts in the music before you start to play it, because it's less complicated for your brain then. You want it to be as fun as possible. C and D. So this is an interval of a second, and when you see them apart like this, this is telling us to play them separated. So we play C and then D. If we see them smooching like this, they're kind of touching, that's going to tell us to play them at the same time. It sounds like this. Okay, so we're going to move this up. Okay, so now we have the distance. I call this a skip because we're skipping over one spot. It's skipping up to the 3rd, and this is C and an E, so we call this skip a 3rd, and it sounds like this. And again, if you want to play them at the same time, you're going to see them notated just like that. They're going to be right on top of each other. Whomp. Okay, so once you've gotten really good at noticing that this is a 3rd and this is a 2nd, you can start looking at the 4th. So we know that a 3rd is kind of this skip. The 4th is just a slightly greater distance, okay? And notice, the 4th, you're on a line and then you're on a space. When you're in a 3rd, you're always gonna be going from a line to a line, or we could do a 3rd here. We'll start on this space, do a skip, and look at that, that's a 3rd. So we're always line or space for 3rds. That's a good little checkpoint. Yeah. So let's make our 4th. So the 4th has to be different. It's gonna be a line and a space. Here's our 4th. Okay, now our 5th is, again, just like the 3rd, has a line or a space and a space. And we'll count them. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's how we know it's a 5th. These ones are a little harder to identify off the cuff, but there's your 6th. C, D, E, F, G, A. And then there's your 7th. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And we go one more step, and we're at our octave. This is a low C, rather middle C, and this is high C. So that is how intervals look on the staff. We've got that all sorted out.
Cool.
Okay, so I think we're going to take a look at our sheet music now.
Okay.
We're going to look at playing a piece that kind of ties up all of those concepts. I've got it right in front of me here, and it's downloadable, right?
Yeah,
so you guys
if you're
can
a
access
Pianote
this?
member, totally. Yeah, you can even just like scroll down on the video page here, and you'll see it available just to look at, or you can download it.
Yeah, so if you're here and you're actually playing along, it'd be a really good time to download that so that you can try playing it along with us today. So what we have is a beautiful piece of music created by Jordan.
Oh gosh.
It's so pretty.
Oh shucks.
He managed to make this intervals exercise actually sound nice. So we're gonna play through it. So what we have is we've got our first measure. So our music is divided into like little boxes called measures. Right. And in this case, we've got 4/4 timing, which means that in each of our little cages, we can fit 4 beats.
Right.
Right. So we know that a quarter note gets 1. That's the guy that's colored in. We know that when they're connected with the stem, they each get a half of a beat, and they're played more quickly. And we know when they're not colored in, they get 2 beats. That's called a half note. So Yes. Nope.
No, that all works for me.
You're pondering?
No, I'm not pondering.
All fitting together?
Do you want the click with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
But I would actually like to play through it without the click first.
Okay. And then
so that people can, I kind of talk you through it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go to the click. So metronomes, guys, they are your friend, even though it doesn't feel like it when you guys are working with the metronome.
Yeah.
So they are going to help keep you on track. So there's lots of free metronome apps available. Some keyboards have them built right on in. Use it. Okay, so we start on C, middle C. I'm just going to play right hand. That's another little tip I have is when you're learning a new piece of music, it's really good to just start with one hand. So we're going to play C. And now if you're brand new to this, it's totally acceptable to grab a pen and write C on your page, if you've printed this out, so that you know. So give yourself little kind of hints. I don't recommend writing in every single note because then you don't have to think about it. But if you're finding that you're struggling with some of them, sit there and do the thinking first and write a couple little cues in for yourself and then go to play it.
Right.
Seems fair. So we go from C, 2 C's, and we go up 1 step. And then we move back down to C. And then we've got a couple more C's happening, and we've got a skip. And we go back to C. We're always kind of grounding back to C. And then we've got the interval of a 4th. And then we go up a 5th and we get a bunch of G's. And the 8th notes sound like this. And then we're on C. So that's the first line. And again, if you're new, just stay there. Play just that first line like 100 times until you feel like you can just do, again, eyes closed is a good trick, but we are sight reading, so there's some confusion about whether or not that's a good idea. Maybe. One eye closed. Yeah. Usually it takes so much repetition to learn a piece that by the time you can play it really well, you usually do have it memorized.
Yeah, yeah.
So not everybody's as strong at memorizing music, so it's not 100% true all the time. But in most cases, I find once a student really knows a piece, it's usually memorized.
Right. Okay,
second line, we're starting on the A. So I'm going to use my 5th finger, and we go back down to middle C. And now you can see it moves up 1 step from A. We got a bunch of B's happening. And then we go to C. Now, it depends on if you got little teeny hands or bigger hands, but if you can use your 4th finger to play that B, it's going to be way easier to hit the C on top. So notice how I stretched my 4, and then I let go of the C, and then I went to C. Okay, so back to A, C, and then 4 to B, C. Third line. Oh, some C's where it's cruising, it's easy. And then we have a pattern of C, D, E, which I call stepping up. And then we go E, D, C, which I call stepping down. And then you'll notice the next measure, we've got 3 notes happening. They're a little bit distance apart and they're all on lines. So I'm not gonna think too hard about what note is what. I'm gonna go, okay, they're pretty close together. They're all on lines. It looks like they're moving up in skips. And I'm gonna go skip, skip, skip. I call that jump up high. The note names are C, E, and G. And boom, you got it. So the rest of the song is basically just sort of a reiteration of some of those patterns. Measure 13, Jordan was kind enough to put little measure notation. So if you look at the beginning of each line, you're going to see a number. And that tells you what measure it is. So we talked about how each little cage is there. The numbers represent what measure we're on. So measure 13, C. Oh, we're easy straight again. Stepping up, stepping down. Now careful, there's a big interval of a 5th happening here. So we're gonna go all the way up to G, and we're gonna jump down low. And then careful again, we're on line 2 in the treble clef. So that means we're on G. So we're gonna go to our 5th finger, and we're stepping all the way down to C again. And then we've got that big interval of a 7th. So 4 finger stretches up to B, and then we're on C. So there you have it. Now he's put in some left-hand stuff for us. So again, what I would suggest you do is if you want to print out this music and kind of write in some cues for yourself, especially if you're new, this is going to be tricky. It's really hard because you're having to read one language in the right hand, a kind of another language in the left hand, and then you have to get them to cooperate and play at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was reading somewhere that music is one of the only activities that really engages the entirety of your brain. And this is kind of case in point here.
Right.
It's not just, oh, I'm right brain or I'm left brain. It's everything's working, like really hard.
Yeah.
So if I were new and I wasn't able to quickly identify this left-hand note, I would use my silly little rhyme and I go, okay, it's a space. I'm going to start on the very bottom space. I'm going to say all cows. Okay, it's a C. And it's not the C up here. It's the C down here, which tells me it's the C that is below middle C. So here's middle C, and here's the C below. And I'm going to play this C with my one finger in this case, because you'll notice in the music, the notes that we need to play next are below it. So I'm going to do this all together, I think, at the same time for you now.
Okay.
So you can kind of get a feel for it, and then if anybody has questions, we'll answer them.
Those. Cool.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's have that click.
You want to click it up?
Yep.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Okay, we're at 80 BPM.
Yep.
Perfectly leisurely stroll here.
It's just the right tempo.
Right.
And a point to make is if you're practicing this at 80 BPM and you're feeling rushed, you're feeling like, I don't know what to do, slow it down. You should always keep your metronome when you're learning a piece at a very comfortable speed. And then once you're comfortable there, you bump it up a couple BPM, and then you slowly work your way up. Don't start too fast. There's nothing wrong with starting slow.
Cool.
Okay, here we go. So I got my hand position ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Here it comes.
Let's do this. Another little tip, once you can hear your metronome, don't just start playing right away. I tap my foot. Because naturally, I'm not a very wonderfully rhythmic person. So you have to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, get in the beat.
You gotta get in the beat.
There it is.
Here we go. C, C, D, C, 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 E, C, 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 F, C, G, 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 C, A, C, C, B, 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 C, A, C, C. Some repetition there. Here we go. C, 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 D, E, D, C. Here's a jump up high, or skipping up. Back to C, love C. Stepping up, stepping down. Here's a jump down, jump down low, stepping down so low. And it's so pretty.
Nice.
So if you're at home and you're playing along, you're gonna probably have to do that a few times before it feels really smooth.
Yeah.
But I really feel like this piece of music is giving us all of the kind of basic little patterns that we see in our early music.
Yeah.
And it's showing it in a way that's gonna help you to quickly identify and learn them and kind of get your feet about you, so to speak.
Yeah.
In terms of learning to play by sight.
Yeah.
So again, break this down into little chunks. I would suggest one line at a time. Each line seems to have a pretty defined set of, skills, and it's all going to come together. So, do we have any questions so far?
Let's take a look. No questions so far from the audience. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get a
So,
question.
thank you.
Just one though.
Okay, just the one. I'll make it count.
Okay, thanks.
So, when you're learning the sheet music, in your opinion, do you learn the sheet music for the purpose of then internalizing what the song is, and then do you get to a point where you're not really reading the sheet music anymore? You've kind of memorized the patterns, or are you always sort of looking to refer back to the sheet music?
That's sort of a tricky question because I think that's a really moving scale depending on your learning style.
Yeah.
So for me, when I'm learning a piece of sheet music, my goal is to internalize as much of it as possible as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I do what I call a pre-trip.
A pre-trip.
A pre-trip.
Okay.
So if you're like a driver of trucks, or vehicles, you're gonna do your pre-trip. You're gonna check that everything's good before you hit the road.
Yeah.
So I do a little, because I'm not an amazing sight player.
Nice.
I do a pre-trip.
Yeah.
So what I do is I give myself some checkpoints. I go, okay, well, I'm gonna look at my music. Where do my hands go? So that's always number one. where do my hands go? What are my starting notes? And what finger number should I use? Often in music, that's going to be indicated for you at the beginning, but sometimes you have to use your logic.
Yeah.
So hand position, where do I start? What's the key signature? Are there going to be any sharps or flats in this piece? Yes or no? What's the time signature? How many beats are going to be in each measure? Yeah. And then I look through the music. I scan through the whole piece before I play, and I try to pick out patterns that I can easily identify. So if I'm looking at this sheet music, I'm going to go, okay, so we're starting on C, and then we go up by one step, and we come back down. Oh, and then we're jumping, and we're back down. And I'm going to look through and go, oh, look at here, in measure 13, I'm playing 4 Cs. I don't even have to think. Oh, in measure 14, I'm playing C, D, E, which is stepping up, and I know it sounds just like this. So I'm having this kind of like pre-trip, this run-through of the song before I even start to play it, because then my ability to play it correctly is there before I even get started. Okay. Because one thing we have to be careful with when we're with music, I think, is creating muscle memory on the correct in the correct way. Right. So when we practice something incorrectly, we enforce the wrong habit. So we want to be as accurate as possible from the get-go, which is why I recommend playing it very slowly, getting to know your music before you play it. Rhythm-wise, my piano teacher always used to make me count out loud, which I don't know why, but I found horribly embarrassing. Yeah. Like, I didn't want to count out loud. It just felt really wrong and weird.
You're super vulnerable. You're exposed.
Yeah, now I have to count.
You didn't sign up for that.
I didn't sign up for that. No. so I have this rule with my students. I don't actually make them count out loud because you say that to them and they look at you like, oh my God, I'm not going to argue, but I don't want to do it. Yeah. So you either have to tap the rhythm before you play, or you have to be kind of counting under your breath. So I'm actually going to play the song for you again, and I'm going to count out loud, even though it brings up traumatic childhood memories. It's going to be so embarrassing for you. Because I want you to see what that looks like. And again, this is a super good way to practice because it's going to help you to identify the rhythm patterns as you go. I count in my head now when I play. It's just a natural thing because I know I have to stay on track. Yeah. So what we're going to have here is quarter notes, which I call ta, because they have one beat and ta is one syllable, so it just simply makes more sense to me. Okay. Okay, and then we have eighth notes, which I call titis, because you have to play them fast. And then we have half notes, which I call half notes because that's 2 syllables, and a half note gets 2 beats. Yeah. So can you bump it down to 75 BPM, because I want to go really slow because I have to say all my countings.
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Thanks.
You ready for it?
I'm so ready.
Here it comes.
Okay. So I'm going to adjust to this new tempo, guys. Okay. Ta, 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 ti, 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 half note. Ta, 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 ti, 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 half note. Ta, 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 ti, 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 half. No. Ta, 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 half note. Ta, ta, half note. Ta, ta, half note. Ta, 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 half note. Ta, ta, half note. Ta, ta, half note. Ti, 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 ta. Ti, 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 half. No.
Beautiful. Nice.
There, I did it. Yeah. That was counting out loud, guys. Cool. So you can do that in your heads, or if you're alone, or just you're really not bothered by counting while you play, go for it. It's so good. So usually, when I'm learning a new piece, I do my pre-trip. Then I play through it really fairly clumsily because I'm brand new to it, but I do it. And then I'll play through it saying the note names, and then I'll play through it saying the timing. Okay. Because then we're connecting all of the dots. Yeah. Because in order to play a piece properly, you have to have correct timing and you have to play the correct notes. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that kind of all comes together. Cool. Yes. Sweet. And then, dun, 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 dynamics. Right. So this piece does not have any dynamics. Jordan. So But this is good. This is really exciting because what it means is we get to create our own dynamics. So dynamics basically is a way to say the drama of the piece, the loud and the quiet and the staccato and the legato. Staccato means hot and legato means smooth. And the becoming louder gradually and becoming softer gradually. You get to call the shots on that at home. Cool. So what I'm probably going to do later, because I really want to, is I'm going to design my own dynamics for this piece. Yeah. I'm going to write them in, and then maybe Jordan will post a pic of how I decided to dynamically create this.
Lisa remix.
The Lisa remix.
Sweet December jam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my big plan.
It's about to drop.
So I'm going to play it one more time with a click, with both hands, with some mystery dynamics for you.
Okay.
I'm not going to count out loud, though.
So what's your, before we start with this, what's your approach with the dynamics? Because that's something that really takes your playing to the next level. Really,
it does.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. I'm going to say off the cuff, I didn't really have a plan.
Okay.
Because I was just gonna go with how I felt.
Yeah, no, that's a fair
And also,
answer.
I've been playing for a long time, so dynamics kind of feel like a natural sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I guess off the cuff, I'm gonna kind of tell you that my choices are gonna be loud, medium quiet, quiet, really quiet, smooth, spicy, hot, staccato. Yeah. However you want to call it. Yeah. Crescendo, which basically means gradually louder. Decrescendo, which means gradually softer. Maybe I'm going to play some notes with a little extra oomph. We call that an accent. Those are kind of the things that I'm thinking in my head, and I'm just going to create them on the fly.
Okay. Are you still happy with 75 BPM?
I think we can go back to
80.
Yeah, that will be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, I'm ready. To do a diminuendo, or a retardando, which is the Italian word for slowing down gradually, and then I remembered I was playing with a metronome and it kind of all fell apart on me there.
No, I felt it.
You felt it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. So that's not a good dynamic skill to utilize when you're practicing with a metronome. Slowing down gradually will really throw you off your game.
Yeah.
But that was where I was headed with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best I've heard that played.
Thanks.
For the record.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So that was my on-the-fly dynamics, hands together, with correct timing for most of the song performance of the interval piece.
Right on.
Okay. Yeah. Rocking and rolling. So guys, if you have any questions, now is the time.
I got it. There is one.
Okay.
This is from Avincel. Not exactly sure what you're asking here, Antal. He's saying, could you go through those little crosses and B's, etc., please? I think he might be talking about sharps and flats.
Oh, these guys here?
Yeah. I'm thinking that's probably what you're looking for.
That's usually the question that gets asked when these are hanging out on the board.
Yeah, what are those?
These are the original hashtag guys. This is called a sharp.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy is called a flat.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what they do. Okay. So I'm gonna place this note on. Anybody guess? It's an F. That's F. Face, F-A-C-E-F. Okay, so here's F on the piano.
Cool.
So I'm gonna put my little sharp guy by it, okay? What a sharp does, so when you sharpen a pencil, the pencil goes, I just think it goes up.
I like this metaphor.
Do you like where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Like the wood moves up on the pencil to give you more lead.
Sure.
That's how I'm thinking about this, guys. If you got something better, I'd love to hear it.
Sharpen a pencil.
Up. It goes
and
up.
It goes up.
So this is F sharp. It moves us up a half step. So I remember it's up because of my lovely pencil metaphor. And the half step bit is something you just have to know.
Yeah.
It goes up a half step. And a half step basically means you're moving from one note to the next possible note, and that includes black keys. So F sharp, so this is F, and this is F sharp. Okay, so let's put this on. Let's go. Let's go here. All cows eat grass, A, B. I'm gonna put this here. Okay, so this is called a flat. When you get a flat tire, it goes down. So a flat brings you down a half step. So if we're on B, here's the B. Here's B flat. That's what those are for.
Yeah.
So when we're exploring other key signatures, which means kind of other note families, that's a good way to put it, we're going to find that some of them have built-in sharps or flats. And sometimes there's one, sometimes there's a bunch of them. So the more sharps or flats you add into the scenario, it tends to become slightly more complicated. So for example, if I'm going to play a scale in the key of E major, I'm going to have 4 sharps that I have to play to make it sound good. Because if I just start on E and play all the 8 notes, it sounds super yucky. Well, it sounds kind of neat.
It just sounds weird.
It just sounds not quite right. If I play the sharps that it needs, it's magically beautiful.
Nice.
So there's the sharps.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. Sharps and flats. Okay.
Cool.
Anything else rolling around in there?
No, I think we got it. That is what he was asking. There was a question that I had about it, but it slipped out of my mind.
Was it my awesome pencil metaphor?
No, I'm not exactly sure what kind of pencils you're sharpening, but I'll take your word for it.
I'm going to really try hard to come up with the best metaphor for that ever for you guys, and I'll let you know when I get there.
Pretty decent.
Up. It goes up.
It does.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there we have it. There we have it. We've looked at intervals today. We've looked at the keyboard and getting around with all the notes, and we've looked at the staff and how that works. We've played with counting and with our rhythms and with all of the things. So I think that gives us a really good foundation for sight reading. That it is some core skills craziness. All right. Rocking and rolling then.
Cool.
Okay.
Sweet.
I'm just going to end by playing this beautiful piece of music for you again. So we're going to roll on out.
All right. Well,
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming in, Lisa.
Thanks
Always
for
great.
having me.
Thanks so much for joining everyone out there. If you have any more questions, just email me. We'll answer them over email. And give this another shot here.
No metronome this time?
No metronome. Okay.
I'm going to improvise a bit.
Sweet.